there's this myth, right? When you think about lawmakers, at least I had this idea before I started being an activist, was that they're all geniuses and they are highly qualified,
Mhm.
well-educated, sophisticated think tanks, right? And that they had our best interests at heart. And regardless of what side of the aisle they were on, they wanted to hear from us. And I'm not a survivor like you, and that story is absolutely horrific. But I have experienced that as well in state houses. I gave testimony early on in Indiana, and I can remember a lawmaker. I was speaking to a panel of almost all men, and one of them, I think there was one woman and like something like 8 men. One of the men said, I tried to speak, and he said, "You are not to speak unless we ask you a question." And he accused me of being un-American because I supported background checks. And they were sharing all this misinformation from John Lott. And if anyone knows anything about gun violence prevention, you know that he is a fake scientist, that he really is not well versed in the data. He's sort of in the gun lobby's back pocket. And it really opened my eyes. And it just, the point I'm trying to make is that this is not hallowed ground. If you are a caring, kind, compassionate, interested, curious person, and you care about your family and your community and your state, then you are qualified to hold office. You are more than qualified. And I think that sometimes women have this gating factor where they either need to be asked or convinced, or they wait until, I think the average age is 47 to run for office. Don't wait. You are more than qualified to hold an elected position just by being an activist. You really are.
You know, I think that Amy told me that women need to be asked 7 times before they'll run. So I've made it a practice to ask everybody I know to run for office as many times as I can. That when you talk about the qualifications, that's actually how I made my first baby step into elected office, was right after the 2016 presidential election. My town sent out an email saying there was a vacant council position, and does anybody want to step forward to be appointed? And I thought literally exactly what you said, looking at who had just been elected president, I am at least as qualified as him to serve on my town council.
You're more than qualified to be president.
Well, apparently by today's standards, I am. So, but really that is what made me get interested in serving in elected office. And it's been a lot of fun. I really love, serving my community. And so this is running for the state house is just a natural next step from that.
Yep.
A couple of weeks ago, we had protests in Harrisburg that you've seen, I think, in Michigan, all over the country. And there seemed to, against the stay-at-home order, purportedly against the stay-at-home order. And it looked like there is a lot of the Venn diagram between Second Amendment activists and stay-at-home protesters seems to be a pretty solid.
And misogynist. It's a perfect circle.
Yeah, it's a perfect. Why do you think that is? Where's the common ground between not wanting to stay home and protect people and saying that you have to protect people with guns?
Well, what's really interesting, and we've done a lot of research ourselves as an organization into these so-called protests, and many of them are being organized by a family called the Dorr Brothers. There's 4 of them. They're in Iowa. And the way they make a living is to create Facebook pages and then charge people anywhere from $35 to $1,000 to belong. And these rallies are not really about stay-at-home orders. They're about gun extremists using open carry to silence the opposition, to intimidate them. And in fact, they're saying things like, if there's ever another mass shooting, a horrific shooting, which we know there will be, unfortunately, then governors will use these stay-at-home orders somehow to take away people's guns. And that's what, interestingly enough, this really boils down to gun extremists showing up everywhere. We saw them in Michigan again today. In fact, the legislature shut down to avoid these armed insurrectionists. And it's culturally reprehensible. It's socially perverse. It undermines democracy. And, there's not much of a debate or a conversation to be had when the other person shows up with a gun.
Yeah. we have some loopholes. You know, most progress in gun laws has been made at the state level. And we have some loopholes in Pennsylvania, like that allows people to purchase a long gun like an AR-15 or a hunting rifle without a background check if it's in a private sale, and that includes gun shows. What do you think that what do you see as the most important thing state legislatures are doing right now? What are the successes they're having?
Well, we're seeing broad bipartisan support. You mentioned red flag laws earlier. It's a law that allows, depending on the state, families or police to petition a judge to get a temporary restraining order to remove the guns from someone who is a danger to themselves or someone else, to figure out kind of what's going on. And we've seen broad bipartisan support for those. They've passed now in 19 states, most recently in Virginia. Thanks to the work done in November of 2019 to flip both chambers of the General Assembly. And background checks now in 22 states. Again, the most recent is the state of Virginia. And then laws that disarm domestic abusers. We've passed those now in 28 states. And, you know, it's not just playing offense, it's also playing defense. So we have to show up and stop the same bad bills, it seems, over and over again. We have a 90% track record of stopping the NRA's agenda in state houses for the last 5 years. That includes forcing guns into K-12 schools, onto college campuses, stand your ground laws, permitless carry. So, you know, they've called their own agenda a train wreck because we've stopped it so effectively. And I can remember thinking, you know, back in the early days, okay, we'll pass these federal laws in Congress and then we'll kind of like go back to our normal lives. And what I've realized in the last almost 8 years is Congress is where this work ends. It's not where it begins. We have to do the unglamorous heavy lifting of grassroots activism every day by showing up at gun bill hearings and showing up at state houses and meeting with our lawmakers. The stuff that you've been doing, the stuff you will do once you're elected on the opposite side of the desk. And that's how progress is made.
A lot of us are exhausted. I mean, particularly exhausted now, but we have been exhausted since November 2016. In gun violence prevention, in good government, in any of the things that we're fighting for, what do you tell people who say they feel like they can't do it anymore?
You know, I heard someone say that it's almost like having a sick child, right? You do get exhausted and you do get tired and you do want to go to bed and you do want it to be over, but it's your child. And you have to be with them until the fever breaks and until they're feeling better. That's the role of being a parent. And I think that's the role of being an American. Our country is sick right now. And it's on all of us as Americans to nurture democracy back to life. And it isn't easy. And it is not always fun, that's for sure. But it is rewarding, and it is an important part of what we do as being part of a democracy. Alice Walker said, you know, being an activist is the rent I pay to live on the planet. And I think that that's true. Now, I always say this is a marathon, not a sprint. It's also a relay race. If you have to pass the baton over for a day, a week, a month, do it. Prioritize yourself. You know, this is a hard time for everyone. Suddenly people are full-time teachers and parents and caretakers and employees and activists. You need to make sure you're putting your own mental health and welfare above everything else. But as someone who has had to take breaks for my own personal family issues over the last 8 years, I know the work will still be here when I come back. And so self-care, I think right now especially, is an important part of being an activist.
Thank you. I want to point out that I see, I might be missing somebody, but I see at least 3 other women in the room who are running for office. Anne-Marie Mitchell, Marlene Katz, and Christy Nebus. I met Anne-Marie and Marlene through Mom's work earlier, and now we all went through Emerge together as well. So there are all kinds of threads that we've this group together.
That's wonderful.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. Hi,
is
Sharon.
such a great program. Hello.
Jennifer, we also have one other alum, Lisa Reynolds from Oregon, who's also running.
Lisa, oh, hi, I didn't see you on my
Lisa.
thing. Thank you for being here. Oh, there you are, Lisa. Thank you for being here. Shannon, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. If you have anything that you want to say that I haven't asked you.
I want to ask you a question.
Okay.
how can we help you? And I think it's so important to tell people what you need. Donations, volunteer support, what can we do and how can we do it?
So I'm in a 6-way Democratic primary, which makes local support hard to come by. People don't want to take sides. My primary is also in 19 days. So we are down to the wire. Right now, I think Liz is going to pitch in for me in a minute. It's mostly about donations so I can do the last minute digital campaigns I need to do, since we can't, normally I'd be out knocking on doors nonstop right now, and you can't do that. And also text banking. If you live in the district, I'd love to stick my sign in your front yard. So we'll provide details on all of that as the evening goes on. Thank you.
Great. Good. Well, good luck. And I'm just honored to be a supporter and to know you, and so proud of all you've accomplished, and can't wait to see you win on election night.
Thank you, Shannon. Thank you so much.
Have a great night.
You too. Bye-bye. So now I think my friend and supporter and light of my life, Liz Lee, is going to say a few words.
Hi, everyone. I'm having, of course, as I always do, as I often do, technical difficulties with my computer. Fine. So I'm on my Zoom app, so I might not be able to drop comments in, but I just want to say I'm a Springfield resident. So I will be voting for Jennifer. And I'm voting for her not only because she is my close, loving, loyal friend. We met through gun violence prevention advocacy, but it's grown into a lot more than that. And I'm so proud of her for being brave enough. She's maybe the bravest person I know. I've seen her speak truth to power. I've watched her advocate in Harrisburg and speak to rooms full of people that I could never dream of speaking to in front of, you know, the extremists that are in Harrisburg when we have lobby days and things like that. So I'm proud to know her. I'm proud that I can actually vote for someone that I truly believe in my own district to represent me. So this is kind of obviously a unique situation with the COVID-19 thing, and any of the candidates who I also know and love and wish I could vote for you guys too that are on the call. Know that this is such a difficult haul because right now people are getting their mail-in ballots. This is the first time many people are voting by mail, and people are making decisions or looking for decisions. So we need people to share why they're in support of Jen, even if you don't live in the district, sharing a message or because everyone's networks obviously are span large, you know, on social media, span far and wide. So you never know who could live in the district, Cheltenham, Jenkintown, or Springfield, that might be looking for someone to vote for. It's confusing. There's 6 candidates. I think Jen is the best candidate for this job. I want to vote for a woman. She's empathetic, she's compassionate, and so we need money for digital outreach in the next couple of weeks, and it's crucial. So if anyone is able to donate, we will pop the link for Jennifer Lugar for the 154th. And also there's a spot on her website at, and she'll put that in the comments as well, where you can click join and you can ask for a yard sign and it will be dropped off to you. If you'd like to text bank or any of the other, just sharing on social media and amplifying Jennifer's message.
Thank you, Liz. I just have to share that I think it's hilarious that Liz is saying I'm brave, because something nasty happened in my yard 2 days ago with 2 animals getting into a fight, and there was some crime scene cleanup that needed to be done, and I cried to Liz, and her wonderful husband came and took care of it for me on his birthday. So I was not feeling so brave at that moment. So I did pop the donation link and the website into the comments. So if you would like to help or yard sign, just fill out the form on my website and we'll get the information to you, or the whatever you need. We're going to go into a panel discussion now, and it's with Dr. Doreen Dodgen-Magee. She is an Everytown Survivor Fellow. That is how we first connected. And she is a practicing clinical psychologist and author of Deviced: Balancing Life and Technology in a Digital World, available on Amazon.com. Doreen's going to be guiding the conversation, which is one of her gifts. We also have Michael Cogbill, who is a community organizer in Philadelphia. He used to be on the ceasefire PA staff, so he's well versed in gun violence prevention. He's now working for a labor union. And when I first got involved in gun violence activism, every single place I showed up, whether it was a little meeting, whether it was a rally on the Art Museum steps, whether it was a protest in front of a movie theater, Michael was there. He is everywhere. So he has a tremendous understanding of gun violence in the city, and has some thoughts on root causes and what we can do to help. And then finally, we have Julia Spoor. She is an activist. She was one of the founders of Students Demand Action. And she did not write it, but she is profiled in Hillary and Chelsea Clinton's book of Gutsy Women. So there's all of my books. So I guess all of the talkers can unmute themselves. And I think Doreen's gonna kind of guide our conversation. And if you have any questions, just put them into the chat and we'll.
Yes, please. So Michael, we're gonna start with you today, and Jennifer stole my introduction because I was gonna share the little anecdote about the fact that she sees you everywhere.
Yeah.
So given
Could I first thank Jennifer for having me? It's important that we kind of observe everybody and realize this issue affects so many different people, different demographics, but I really appreciate you making sure that you have a young man of color on this call, and I can convey what's important to me and what we need to do to protect my community. So that's very important. You deserve those kudos. Thank you.
So Michael, actually, can you start there? Can you start with how gun violence is affecting the wider community and also your particular community, and what you believe to be kind of the root of gun violence?
I mean, there are so many different things that tend to be the root. First, the laws are bad, and then poverty. We have access, and I live in Germantown now. I grew up in North Philadelphia. I currently live very close to Nicetown. There's a lot of gun violence. I can hear it at night on my way to sleep. But poverty, when folks have access to firearms, and the gun laws there's so many loopholes. When you can buy an AK-47 without a background check, but you can't get like financial aid to go to college, or you can't, like it's not public schools aren't competitive. People can be frustrated. The folks are living day to day. There's no hope. Discouragement oftentimes has people make hasty decisions that they don't want to make, usually when you're not yourself, or you're trying to balance a bunch of thoughts. Oftentimes the one that's the worst can emerge and kind of like take over. So yeah, but I just, again, Jen running in 152 and acknowledging my presence and acknowledging, somebody from another community and what she can do in the state house, that's really important. So you need folks who get it. You need smart people to tackle this issue. People talk about burnout in the GVP movement. And I was just in my bathroom thinking, like, do we really get burnt out, or is it oftentimes, maybe for the last 10 years, I think we've just been fighting and not getting too many big wins. So I don't think it's burnout or within organizations, folks doing bad, or those disagreements is what has people kind of stepping away from the movement and needing breaks. I think it's just such an uphill battle. It's not rewarding. A lot of folks don't see it. It's not like we're super glamorous in this world. It's super tight knit. We keep seeing each other because we're the only people out all the time. It's not too many. You run into the same familiar faces often, but that burnout comes from, you can do a lot of door knocking, you can do a lot of phone banking, but we still, like, America has it, and this is the only place that has this issue. So that burnout comes from us, but we got to keep fighting. We got to keep working. And again, we got to vote and support smart people in this space.
So Michael, one follow-on question for you. Is there anything in your own life that really was an impetus for you moving into the work of gun violence prevention specifically?
Yeah, I always knew it was there. I lost friends when I was younger. I guess, to be honest, getting into that space. So I worked for Ceasefire PA. It was policy heavy. It was issue advocacy heavy. Issue advocacy comes from kind of like having things. So participation costs. In order to set up a phone bank, or in order to do some advocacy or to show up, you have to have some sort of means to kind of compensate your time. But I always knew it was an issue for people who look like me, for young Black people. I've had access to some things, and just getting into that world of issue advocacy, I knew I could talk to a bunch of, different people and potentially make some strides. And I think folks did it at Ceasefire. Jen as well helping. Senate Bill 501, that was something I thought never would potentially happen. But keeping guns out of the hands of domestic violence abusers, that's super big. And especially in Black communities, we talk about Black churches where DV is an issue, Black households, single parent households, sometimes boyfriends are doing things with firearms. So, yeah.
Thank you so much. We will be coming back to you, Michael. Thank you. Julia, I want to ask you a question next. Your young life has been kind of bookended by 9/11 at the beginning and pandemic now, filled with school shootings in between. And I'm just curious how you imagine these realities will kind of fuel and maybe shape the activism from your cohort of humans.
Yeah, so I think about a lot, especially lately with the pandemic and everything that's going on right now, all the chaos. Like, a lot of people I know kind of refer to, especially this time in America, as before 9/11 and after 9/11. And I feel like in the future, people will be referring to, the world before COVID-19 and after COVID-19. And I was born a month after 9/11, so I have no understanding of kind of a world without, extreme airport security and things like that. And I think I'm hoping that when I raise kids someday, and when I'm passing things down to the next generations, I'm talking about this gun violence epidemic in the past tense. And I'm talking about these horrible events that are happening and the things that I've gone through as something that could never happen now, and could never, I don't want people to even understand what it's like. But unfortunately, people in my generation and older have just become so conditioned and so desensitized to an extent about all this gun violence that's happening all around us. And unfortunately, for me, I don't know a world without school shootings. So hopefully, and I am hopeful that eventually, this will be behind us, and I can reference these things like how my mom references life before 9/11, or these huge cultural events.
How have things like growing up with first-person shooter drills in schools impacted your generation?
It's something that's always on our mind. At the first day of school every year when I'm entering new classrooms, one of the first things I think of, and all of my classmates are thinking of, is, okay, where would we hide in the case of an active shooter drill? Where would we hide in a lockdown? And that's what teachers go through. On the first day of school, they hand out the syllabus and they tell you their expectations for your class. And they say, by the way, I have this closet back there and it can fit about 10 people. And anyone who can't fit in there will hide under their desks. And just having that kind of routine in a school setting, especially, which is supposed to be, a safe space for learning and growth, it's scary, but to an extent, it's just normal. And most of my friends, and especially people younger than me, we're just so used to it, and it's become so normalized. And that's what I really hate most about it, is that you get to a certain point, you have enough orientations that at some point the teacher is telling you where you would hide in a case of a active shooter drill, and it's not new anymore and it's not scary anymore because you're so used to it.
Thank you so much, Julia. And I have such compassion for what you and your generation has faced in that way, and also for your own personal loss. Thank you. So we will come back to you as we move forward.
Thank you, Doreen.
Yeah. Jennifer, I'm curious, you've been involved in this movement for a really long time, 10 years in some ways or other. And I'm curious what you have seen in terms of what the maybe progressive or wonderful things worthy of celebrating you've seen happen in the gun violence prevention movement, and then maybe some things specifically in your state that are lagging behind or that are really an issue we need to be aware of.
So yes, Pennsylvania lags behind in a lot of weird ways. I got involved, I think it was 2015. My husband died in 2009, and I had always, my whole, since I was a teenager, I've been knocking on doors and licking envelopes and making phone calls and doing a lot of behind the scenes works for causes and candidates I cared about. But that was it. I took orders. I was a foot soldier. I did the stuff, but I never really went any deeper than that to learn what happened with all those envelopes. I was, doing things. So then when my husband died, suddenly people were so great to us. Our friends and neighbors and total strangers suddenly showed up for us. I was used to showing up for other people, and they helped us with very practical things at the beginning, but mostly I feel like they showed us the way forward. So I knew, I think it was, the very next day after my husband died, I just knew I had to make something good come of it for my daughters and for me and for our community. But I had no idea what that would look like. So for a while it was just, getting up and putting one foot in front of the other every day. I started paying attention to, I remember the day that Sandy Hook happened, I ran to school to pick up my car full of my kid and a few other carpool kids, and I just, couldn't stop hugging on them. I started paying attention to Moms Demand Action down the line, but again, didn't do anything until 2015. There was a little rally at the Philadelphia Art Museum, and we just decided, Julia and I decided to go. I think she was 14. And I think, Jitana, I think you were there. Were you there that day? Yeah. I now have all these pictures full of people in the background that are my favorite people in the world that I didn't know I was there with. Michael, you were probably there. And we liked it so much that the very next day we discovered it was December, it was around the anniversary of Sandy Hook in 2015. We hopped on the train and went to New York City for the same event there. And it's just like I had this overwhelming feeling that I'd found my people. And so that's how I started just getting involved. And then there I met Liz and Jitana and Marlene and all the, look, Andy's here. Some of the, these women are the most badass people I've ever known.
Absolutely.
They're nurses and social workers by day, and they're, you know, kicking legislative ass by night. It's so they, you know, finding those people, seeing that showing up and showing up and showing up gets the work done, was really inspiring to me. And it just made me want to show up in a different way. When I, just like Shannon said, when you see the man behind the curtain, you realize that there's no mystery there. And I think working with these women on the 2016 election really proved that to me. We met everybody involved, Pennsylvania being a swing state, you meet everybody. And it just, you know, it removes the mystery, and you realize that if you keep showing up, you get access. And if you get access, you have a little bit of power. And if you keep showing up and keep showing up, you're going to get a little bit more. And that was really motivating to me. The state legislature doesn't seem like, you know, it's not mysterious at all anymore. So the things that I'm really concerned about are some of the rules that make it hard to get stuff done. There's terrible dysfunction in Harrisburg. We can have so much support for a bill and it can just sit there, it can die, because that's what they just wait it out and hope that people wear out. And so that's really like one of the most important things. And I really just learned this through my gun violence prevention work. One of the most important things is changing the rules so that our bill can get to the floor, and the fair districting bill can get to the floor, and the bill that would allow nurse practitioners to write prescriptions can get to the floor. There's all kinds of things that special interests are blocking in committee. It's anti-democratic, small d democratic. So those are the kinds of things that I'm thinking about, in addition to the big issues, which are important, but you're only going to get stuff done if you can change the rules to get it done, and so that we can flip the legislature. We're very close. We have some hope. It's been a Republican majority for a very, very long time. I don't know how many years.
Okay, thank you so much. So I'm going to go back to Michael. You know, Michael, my first ever political action, I'm in Portland, Oregon, but my first ever political action was actually a Black Lives Matter rally in Philadelphia. So I'm wondering if I saw you there. I didn't know.
But you know what? They were talking about I was somewhere and they were talking about Black Lives Matter. They do a great job. But I want Black Lives Matter. I want them to start advocating more on behalf of like trans populations too.
Amen.
Like trans people, trans women of color especially, are killed at extremely high rates. Especially in this community, right on Lime Kiln Pike down the street from me. We got like a strip where it's sex workers and like women are dying. So. Yeah, but all of these get no one group is perfect. I just wanted to, you know.
No, I love that. I just mean I was actually piece. Yeah, I was actually in a, you know, like some kind of political action thing in Philadelphia. So I thought, since you're at all of them, maybe you were there. That's all I meant. What I do want to ask though is, what if there were 3 things you could tell us that we could do to make your state more, you know, if we could do work to end gun violence in your state?
Right.
What would those 3 things be?
We got to help elect great candidates who care about all corners of the state. We have to advocate. We have to advocate. A lot of people, a lot of folks who firmly believe in this issue, we become like single issue voters, but we need a little bit more. And maybe we have to evaluate some of these more aggressive progressive ideologies like the Green New Deal and some of these things that might create jobs and lift people out of poverty at high rates. I know the government is fighting for another stimulus package. That's really needed. It's a lot of people who won't get unemployment, who won't get any type of money right now. once we come out of this thing, I think gun violence is going to be super high. So then we're coming off I guess like a stressful period in the economy, and then nothing has changed with gun. And because we're trying to fight COVID, there probably won't be any policy about like common sense gun laws and things like that. So I mean, what folks are doing, everybody from moms, Liz, Jatana, Andy, like you folks just showing up, people, that means a lot. Although we're like, it's small groups and it's Sundays, and it seems like, you know, we're just beating a drum that folks can't hear. It really does mean, especially to the survivors, and y'all especially know that when you see moms who have lost children, and folks who have lost relatives, when we kind of show up as allies or as, you know, people who just want to help, that really lights their faces up. So just showing up, just helping out. And then again, remembering to elect the great candidates who will do something about the issue, and who care about it everywhere.
Can I say?
Thank you.
Can
Yes,
I say? I think of when you keep saying, just keep showing up, keep showing up. Sometimes it doesn't feel like we're doing much when we show up, you know?
Yeah.
I think of, I don't know a lot about this movement, but from my perspective as an outsider, I think of the marriage equality movement. And to me, not being on the inside 15, 20 years ago, it wasn't even anything I thought about. It wasn't something that ever seemed possible. They were just starting to talk about, you know, health benefits for domestic partners at the time. And that seemed like a big win. And it seems like, so in my mind, all these people kept showing up, kind of they weren't on the news. You didn't see them showing up, but they were doing the work. And then from my perspective, all of a sudden it tumbled, like it hit that tipping point. So I feel like we are all doing that work that not everybody outside the movement knows about.
Mm-hmm.
And we're building to that tipping point when all of a sudden it's going to go in the right direction. And we're going to see state laws after state laws pass, and then maybe some federal legislation, to the point where we're no longer talking about, you know, begging for these little crumbs of sensible legislation.
that's fantastic. Thank you, Jennifer. Julia, what are the 3 things you think we could do to really make significant strides in ending gun violence, and also, you know, the issues all around it, like what Michael has brought up, you know, the racial inequities, all, you know, what are the 3 things you think we can do?
Well, if you're limiting me to only 3 things, I think definitely a priority has to be making this movement more inclusive and creating more space for all different people of all different backgrounds, young people and old people and different races and different sexes. I can't agree more with what Michael said about trans women of color being killed at disproportionate rates. You know, this is something that, as a cisgender white woman, you know, I don't have to think about it, and I could choose not to, but I also could choose to think about this and use my privilege as an advantage, and just fight for these people whose voices we don't hear from nearly as much. I think also, okay, so that's one. We really need to get to the root causes of gun violence. You know, it's great to focus on one thing. It's great to, you know, I could spend all my time focusing on making sure red flag laws get passed in all 50 states, but that wouldn't solve gun violence as a whole. We need to get to the root causes. We need to figure out why these people are committing these horrible mass shootings and why people are dying of gun suicide every day, and get to the issues of those problems in order to really make an impact. And I think third, we need, I think we just need better mental health support in this country and in the world. We've seen a lot of, during this pandemic, an uptick in this not necessarily criminal, but just erratic behavior in a lot of people. And it's easy to look at these things and say, oh my God, that's crazy. That guy is crazy. That's ridiculous. But we don't know what's going on in their minds. And there are so many people who don't have enough resources as it is when life is normal, and now, you know, they're stuck in houses with abusive family members or abusive partners. They're not getting the resources they need. They don't have the routine they're used to. And we really need to get to the root cause of that as well, because there will continue to be gun violence and these horrible tragedies involving guns if we don't get to the root of mental health in this country.
Thank you so much. Boy, between the two of you, you have hit many amazing points. Jennifer, I'm just going to pose the same question to you. And is there anything in particular in this race or in this election, you know, that is something that you are really hoping to move forward? I know everything will probably be seen within the light of the pandemic, but gun violence, as Michael and Julia have just brought up, is going to be a result of the kinds of distress that is packed on to people in this time.
Yeah, so I see a hidden gift in the pandemic. It has laid bare everything that's wrong with all of our systems. It has laid bare lack of access to health care. It has laid bare our skewed values of the people we value in this society. We pay football stars, but we don't pay nurses and teachers. It has laid bare the deep chasm of inequality in our education system, that some kids transferred to online school seamlessly because they've all got their MacBooks and their AirPods, and other kids were told literally to sit in the parking lot of their school to get Wi-Fi access. It's obscene. So I look forward to the opportunity to look everything through, to start over. And I think that, you know, a little plug for my candidacy is that, for better or for worse, resiliency is kind of my thing. And I see a great opportunity in this to scrap everything and build it back up the way we want it. And this state does not work for everybody. This state is run by special interests. We have one of the biggest differentials between kids who go to poor schools and rich schools in the nation. That's horrifying to me. That, you know, where I sit in the suburbs, kids get a really great education. We live literally 3 miles from North Philly, where kids are afraid of getting shot on their way to school. So I think that you know, it's a moral failing to put it in those kind of terms. And I really look forward to, you know, there's going to be a lot of talks because there's going to be there's going to have to be budget cutting. The state is not taking in money right now. So there's going to be huge reorganization of the kinds of services we provide. And we're going to have to all stand up for what we value. And if we're going to live according to our values, we are going to give priority to making sure schools rebound and hospitals rebound, and maybe worry a little bit less about the petrochemical industry.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Jennifer, is there anything else that you wanted to address? If not, I thought maybe we could just literally take a few moments to honor all of the survivors that are on this call.
Yes.
Because there are so many of us here. Is there anything else though before we do that you would like? Okay.
Wonderful idea.
So would you be willing to unmute everyone? And maybe if you are, you know, I am a survivor of gun violence. I lost my sister-in-law and 3 very young nieces to homicide. Jennifer's going to unmute us. And if you'd like to just say the name of anyone that has been taken from you by gun, maybe we can do that together and just hold about 30 seconds of silence to honor those lives.
Hey, Dad.
So I'll start out. We can just popcorn, say your names as you would like. Laura.
Get ready for an action-packed birthday.
Uncle Justin.
Hey, Patrick, how are you?
Great, how are you?
I'm fine. Good idea. Scott Smith.
Thank you, all of you. Mm-hmm.
Yaquin and Jermaine.
Thank you, all of you. Michael, thank you for your activism and your bold determination to be in so many places doing so many important things.
Thank you, Jen. Thank you for having me as well. Thank you for doing what you're doing. Thank you for your courage.
Thank you.
Thank you,
And
Doreen,
thank
for
you for,
moderating.
and thank you for calling me Jen. He always calls me Miss Jen.
Right, I knew
old.
not to, no, not even.
I correct him every time, and he's
because we're on
raised well.
colleague status, right? But you know, you're like my other mom and aunt in this space, all of you guys. So, but I wanted to be professional at this moment and not drop.
Thank you, love.
So, and Julia, thank you. You are a hero to me, and thank you so much. And I just want to inspire everyone. When I get off this call, I'm gonna hop on over to Act Blue and donate. I think there are at least 7 or 8 survivors here. I'm going to donate $10 for every survivor.
Thank you.
So if I've missed you, add your name in there, and I encourage you all to do the same. And Jennifer, I'll hand it back to you.
Jennifer, I wonder if I could say hello.
This is welcome, Congresswoman Madeleine Dean.
Hi, Matt.
I do not like busting in here, but I have been listening in. And I just wanted to say hello, good evening. I'm so proud of all of you. This conversation is superb. I'm here in DC, and you're absolutely right. The world, rightly so, is consumed with pandemic. But I have not forgotten, you have not forgotten, we have not forgotten here at the federal level that we have a long way to go to remember the other part of our common humanity, which is to end gun violence. So I just honor every single one of you, and I thank you, and I just wanted to say hello.
Thank you. I did not notice you pop in there, so I appreciate your speaking up.
Thank you. Julia, I'm proud of you voting today.
Julia voted for Mad for the first time today, and I sent her a picture.
I got a picture. That's very cool.
I was so excited. It was amazing, exhilarating.
I will say that she also voted for me, but she was much more excited about voting for you.
I doubt that, Jennifer. Not at all. But remember how many years we have worked together, and every time we would work together, Julia would say, I'm so frustrated I can't vote. I can't believe I can't vote. And how do these people not bother to vote? So finally, you're here, and America is better off for your votes.
It was amazing. My first time voting in November was super exciting, and then I was like, all right, that was my first time. Now it'll just be normal. But when I got that mail-in ballot today, I was so excited. I opened it up immediately. I was like, Mom, please take pictures of me. I'm voting.
Oh, that's great. Well, as always, I'm proud of you both, mother and daughter. Proud of your run, very proud of your run, and all the work you guys are all doing, the advocates. So I just wanted to say hello. I'll get the heck out of the way.
Thank
We
you.
love you, man.
Love you back.
Thank you.
I'm underdressed. That's why I didn't go on video. Good night.
Good night. Thanks.
Good night.
So Jennifer, are you ready to give it a goodbye? Or
I am. I want to thank everybody. I know time is our most precious quantity, and most of us are spending way too much time in front of a screen right now. So I really appreciate you joining in this important conversation. And if you live in the district, I hope to earn your vote. Maybe today, if you also got your ballot today or on June 2nd at the polls. So thank you to Doreen and Julia and Michael and Shannon, who already left, for this really wonderful conversation. I am grateful for your participation.